Pub Hangout. We are live on air, and tonight, really luckily from New York, we are able to meet the photographer who is in the middle of a Kickstarter campaign, David Lykes Keenan, with his project Fair Witness. David, very, very pleased to meet you. Very, very welcome to Street Hunters.
Well, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Welcome.
I sincerely appreciate you guys' interest in my book and in this project, and your support has been nothing but wonderful, and I sincerely appreciate that.
Well, very much worth it, really. We're enjoying it, getting to see the images. But it's like, for me, how does it start? How does a Kickstarter project, well before you click the on-air button for the Kickstarter, where does this start? Only 2006, did I read, that a camera came back into your hands? Where was the idea from, sir?
Well, the camera came back into my hands a little bit soon before that. I left my software business in 2006, and decided that I felt like I was kind of redundant at my business. I talked with my employees, and they kind of felt like I was kind of superfluous in my own business. And, so we just all basically agreed that it was perfectly fine time for me to kind of go out the door, and the business is still ongoing. It's been run by my employees since 2006, and I basically have nothing to do with it anymore on a day-to-day basis. But it definitely has given me the freedom to get out and try to reinvent myself as a photographer. But the idea of doing a book, something like Fair Witness, certainly was not anywhere in my thinking. In the first, probably 7 or 8 years of returning to photography.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I posted pictures on my Picture of the Week on my website in my paw, and without really any expectations. I had hopes, of course, that something might come of that, but I got a contact when I was still living in Austin from Eli Reed, who is the guy that wrote the introduction to my book and has been my mentor and friend and supporter, and he more or less told me, Dave, it's time for you to do a book. And he had been following my pictures for some time, and and Eli's a pretty big deal. He's not necessarily a household name, but he's been with Magnum for 30 years and published numerous books himself, and he teaches at the university level, and I mean, Eli's the real deal.
Yes, indeed.
When somebody like that says it's time for you to do a book,
you're going to listen.
I should listen to him.
Yep.
How did you meet Eli?
Well, we both lived in Austin. I knew of Eli through some students that were students of his at the University of Texas in Austin, and he was always this mysterious figure that I had heard about. I'd heard of. I kind of think of it as the legend of Eli Reed. I had never met him. I'd never seen him before, but I knew he was a pretty prestigious photographer teaching at the university. But I ended up meeting him around the time that I was working with the Austin Center for Photography, which became kind of a magnet to bring various photographers together. And it was through ACP that ultimately Eli and I finally met. But still, even after that, it was a little while longer before I realized that I was anywhere near on his radar as a photographer. So.
Yes, well, these are definitely wonderful coincidences, and it does seem to show that there's been an awful lot of hard work prior to and learning and developing and finding the time. But why the subject matter? Why actually, if you're upcoming, new, developing, would you in a sense, and I'm not saying you are, in a sense, return to a very well-trodden path. It must be a difficult one to bring out, which I do think you have, some really extraordinary images.
Thank you.
From something that's been, as it were, done.
Right, right. Well, you know, I'm not a student of photography. When I was in photography in high school back in the late 70s, the late 60s, early 70s, I didn't know anything about who else was in the business. I mean, who the iconic photographers of the day were. I'd never heard of Robert Frank. I'd never heard of Friedlander and Minor White and all these folks that were trendsetters in those days. And I still didn't know of them about 10 years ago when I returned to photography. I just happened to go to a camera store to buy a camera. It was a Leica Digilux 2, and I bought that camera because it kind of resembled an M3 that my grandfather had back when I was a teenager. I thought it was cool that maybe I could get the same camera my grandfather had, and I just did what came naturally, which was just to walk out the door and wander around the streets of my town of Austin and start looking for pictures. I knew nothing of the history of street photography. I couldn't. Maybe I'd heard the name Cartier-Bresson, but I didn't know anything about him really.
Yeah, yeah.
And I started showing people some of the pictures that I did, and then they said, "Well, have you heard of so and so and so and so?" And no. I was pretty embarrassed that I didn't know the history of this genre that I really found myself on the path of becoming a street photographer. Yeah. And so I did begin to study and read and look at books and to learn some of the history of this particular genre, but it wasn't an educated move on my part by any means.
So it was
I admire Cartier-Bresson, so I want to do what he does.
Yeah, so instantly you're already drawn to this kind of field. It wasn't landscape or set up shots and things.
I actually, a number of years ago, got quoted on photoeditor.com, which is, I don't know if you've been to that site, but they apparently they scrape other blog articles, and they pulled just one sentence out of it that I said, and it was basically how I found landscape to be incredibly boring. I'm sure I ticked off some people with that. But.
Yes, I'm afraid so. We've just lost. Read it, not at all. Not at all.
It's everyone does what they love to do and what they're naturally drawn to, and I just was drawn to taking pictures of stuff on the streets and taking pictures of people. Mostly, I think almost all my pictures have people in them. At least the ones that I like and the ones that I show to people. I wish I could say that I had some kind of master plan about getting into this, but I really didn't.
So when Eli drops a bombshell or a very nice nuclear nudge.
That's the way to put it.
How do you've begun to form, or you've fully formed the idea now? But where does it come from? Because my first hit, as you know, was to scan the internet for the title, Fair Witness, see where it comes from, and I'm going to, just for the sake of it, because I quite like it, read the bit that you have in it. A fair witness is a job, and it's in Highland society. A fair witness is a highly reputable source of information. I won't go into the clothing, but a fair witness is prohibited from drawing conclusions about what they observe. For example, a character in the book is asked to describe the colour of a house seen at a distance. The character responds, "It's white on this side." Now, is that because I think it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful, that you are solely looking through. Are you really able to tell me that there's no judgment, no kind of import of your own ideas, or is it this cold, hard exterior that is a fair witness?
Well, no one would really ask me that question if they didn't probably already know the answer. the title really is a play on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because obviously, I cannot be a fair witness. I'm a human being, and everything, all photographs are subjective, and the title is really a play on what Heinlein defined to be a fair witness. I just love the term fair witness. I think that's like that term, whether you know the history of the book or not, can, I think it's pretty perfect, even if you just define it like I'm a fair witness of what I see around me. Not necessarily, or not in Heinlein's definition of the word, because
yes, you're not very good at your job.
I'm not objective. No photographer is objective.
Oh, right.
Anyone that says that they are is, well, I don't think anyone would say that.
Well, but the other thing I do notice, and I'm going to open it up a little further after this one, is that even with, I've had, I think, 2 weeks with the book, which is just not enough time, but some are instant to me, and it does seem to show that a really thoughtful approach. I hope you know your book better than I do. Page 145, it's a picture called Smut. It does appeal to me, even the title. What we have, and I can show viewers, which won't be a very good showing, is 2 posters on one side. Oops, let me bring it back for you. I'm so sorry, David, this is no way to show your images.
Okay.
We have a recycle bin. It's heavily contrasted, and then just tucked away in the corner we have a little shadow of a man. Creepy. It bordering on the kind of film noir. I find it an absolutely amazing photo. And I know I've wandered the streets. How do you go about finding something like that? How are you certain you're going to come back with something as delicious as that?
I don't know that I know that exactly at the time that I'm taking pictures. I think that I have developed a pretty critical eye because of my pictures of the week that I've been doing since the beginning of 2007, where I religiously look at my work every week to pick a picture to put on the internet, and my goal is always to put a picture on my website that's better than the picture that was on my website the previous week. And when I'm now out looking for photographs, I ask myself, could this be a picture of the week? And therefore, the background question is this better than my last picture that I took? And of course, it's not always the case. You just can't continually, forever, raise the bar. I mean, sometimes, yeah, I am going to drop back down to another level. But that's what I'm trying to say is I can now see, I think, when I'm looking at something, whether or not it's going to be a good picture.
Right.
And that smut thing, was in my neighborhood in Austin, and I'd seen it a dozen times. And that person that was the shadow was somebody that was walking by.
Yeah.
And he walked into the frame, and I'm going to tell you a secret, is that one I did have him do something. I did have him do something.
Oh, yeah?
I don't often do that, but you know what he's doing in that picture, right?
That's it.
Like this. Like,
yes.
Shame on you.
Yes.
Shame on you. And so that one was one of the rare ones that I did have a little bit of influence, but that's how I saw the picture.
Yeah.
I saw that in the word smut. That has all kinds of horrible connotations to people. And so when Garrett walked behind me, I said, Garrett, and I saw a shadow, and then I said, you know what? It might just do this. And he did it, and I took the picture. That's
marvelous.
What came out of it. So.
But
most of my pictures are not staged that way. But that one, don't tell anybody.
Okay.
Let it go down the internet anyway.
Just between us and the web.
Between the 4 of us, okay? All right.
I'm going to, and I really do feel very bad at showing images this way, but I'm going to move to the reader on page 110. And it's once again, I think, this marvelous composition that you do. We have a picture in the background what we assume is a beautiful girl reading a book, and the face in the book is the Clockwork Orange face, but the book is Japanese.
Yes.
And
Perfect.
you know, it is. It makes her face. It adds that sinister edge. Once again, it really is. Is this just sharpness? We do say stay sharp, keep shooting.
That one was absolutely just. I was sitting. That was in a subway train, coming back from JFK. I think maybe coming back from Austin or something. And that one was absolutely pure circumstance. I sat down across from this person, and I noticed that there was a face on the back of the book, and the way there was actually a guy, and the way that he was holding the book, I said, "Oh my gosh!" and I always have my camera in my hand, you know, or in my lap. And that one I did not stage. I really kind of wish he had held the book just a little bit higher. It would have synchronized a little bit better. And but it is what it is. But that one was just, I was in the right place at the right time. But always, as I think, you know, those of us that love street photography and do it, we know we have to be observant. You know, and we need to always be looking for the next picture, and that's certainly what I do. And that one, I just sat at the right place at the right time, and was very lucky to get that picture.
Well, I'll leave my appalling. The reason I'm showing them this way is because you have a Kickstarter project to be getting on with, and if our viewers would like to read more closely these beautiful images, do go to the Kickstarter page. But anyway, we'll move on to guests. David, do by all means, except for me, choose a name at random.
Me choose a name at random?
Why ever not? Hopefully, chaps will have a question or
like any name that comes to mind.
Well, no, any one of us chaps here.
Oh, because your names are bouncing around. Let's have Andrew have a question.
I was wondering, you said about staging the picture with smut. Yeah. I read your a post on Steve Huff's site about making and taking pictures.
Yes.
So you consider that straddling the line there when you did that?
Purely to my definition of make or take, I definitely straddled the line on that one. Yeah, I did have some kind of influence on staging that particular picture. And there's another one that's in the book of this guy with a hula hoop.
Yes.
Yes.
Looking at his phone, hula hooping, and that's also one of the pictures that I didn't exactly stage it, but I asked him to do it because I'd seen him doing it from a distance when I wasn't ready to take a picture, and I thought it was pretty astonishing to have somebody hula hooping and texting at the same time.
Indeed.
So I walked over to him and said, "Would you please do the hula hoop thing?" And he was hula hooping, looking at his phone, and I said, "Okay, now look at me." He looked up at me, and I took that picture. And so that one was even probably more of a make by my definition of make than the smut one was, because I did move the guy and I did ask him to do something for the picture. But yeah, but I still think in the make and take thing, people that make pictures are not, and yeah, some people kind of took it as I was being judgmental, and I certainly wasn't. You know, people that work in the studio and work with models and work in fashion, and you know, those are the kind of people that I feel like those are makers of photographs. You know, they have like they're almost like a filmmaker, where they have a vision of what they want their picture to be, and they create it. And I guess in some sense, with the hula hoop guy, I kind of had a vision of that picture and I made it. You know, but yes, to answer your question, Andrew, that was definitely a straddling of the line.
Right, and I love it. Both those shots are amazing, just absolutely amazing.
Did you have another one you wanted to ask?
Yeah. Have you always shot mono? I mean, is that that's the way you've wanted to go and stuck with it?
You know, I have gone to color from time to time, but I always come back to black and white. I think that my roots as a photographer back when I was a teenager was pretty much all black and white, and you know, I had pretty nice dark room in the basement of my home in Michigan, or my family's home in Michigan that my dad and I built. And it's just doing black and white is what I did, and when I came back to photography, that's what I found myself doing immediately. Buried in my website, if I was to open up some of the galleries that are older, you'll see some color pictures, and even in a few of the Paul galleries in the last couple of years, like last year, I did some color, but I'm just not very good at it, I don't think.
Yeah. I beg to differ, because I looked at, if I could say it without offending anybody, piss.
Oh, well. Okay, yeah.
Which I found, I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really cool.
Hang on just a second. I'm going to put something in front of the camera. We're talking about this. Yeah. So my pictures of European urinals.
I haven't hold one of those.
But I did those when I was in Europe. One of the things, backing up my story of leaving my business, I'd been in Europe for about almost 6 months in the summer and the spring of 2006. And so that's one reason why when I got back to my business, the guys were saying, Dave, you're really not necessary. We've been running the business fine without you for 6 months, so you might as well just not even come back. But I would, when I'd walk into a bathroom or a men's room in Europe, I had a little Panasonic point and shoot, and I said, I'm going to take a picture of this thing I just peed in. And I don't think it's great photography by any stretch.
I think they look great, man.
Well, thanks.
Because Stephen Shaw took his breakfasts and food. Is this an extension of that?
Well, not consciously. I don't know what I don't really know if what possessed me to do it, other than the fact that I had to pee and I had a little camera with me. I have one of my very good friends runs Precision Camera and Video in Austin, and we were chatting the other day, and he wants me to send him some images that he can make, like a 2x6 or 2 foot by 3 foot poster out of these urinals. And so I'll do something with this little book someday. But right now I'm really, as I'm sure you know,
right.
I'm pretty consumed with the street photography and with Fair Witness, and but yeah, I can send you all a copy of piss. I have several copies.
I'm afraid I'm going to start.
It's absolutely, that whole thing is totally something not to be taken seriously, and hopefully people laugh when they see it. And but I don't know if I would agree that it's good photography.
I think the color is great in it, though, but just to give you props there for sure.
Well, I appreciate it. But yeah, I'll get you guys back up when I want to put that book out.
Urinal hunters.
Urinal hunters. Hey, there you go. We probably should Google that. There probably is such a thing.
Yeah, there probably is such a thing, yeah. In the fetish world or something.
That's right. Well, should I ask a question elsewhere, or what?
Yes, indeed. Exactly. Roll on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the next little window I see here is Peter. Does Peter have a question?
Sure. Well, I guess it's along the same lines as your piss theme. I know how we can kind of like walk around and we can kind of find themes just by taking so many photos and being in the same environment. But did you head into your career kind of with themes such as, let's say, decay might be a theme, diversity of faces might be a theme, things that were in you already that you kind of brought into your photography?
Well, I'm not real good with themes, and I think that's why I am a street photographer, because the Fair Witness book, a theme was kind of imposed upon that work, as simply because I happened to be reading Stranger in a Strange Land at the time, and Eli knew of the story, and and Eli came up with the idea of, and this is what's in the introduction of that book, what might an alien see, a benign alien, a benevolent alien, I mean, if they came to Earth and were wandering around, what images might they remember about humanity? And that was an idea that Eli had, that he kind of took the sci-fi theme and applied it to the book. But I really think that it's almost a manufactured theme, because street photography, my pictures are all over the map. I don't know that I can come up with a very strong theme for that kind of work. And again, that almost falls into the category of somebody who takes photographs versus somebody who makes photographs. I think people that make photographs do work much more directly from some kind of theme. And so I'm not really a very good person to talk about theme, I don't think. I mean, it does come from me in the sense that I've been a very solitary individual in my life. I have very often felt like I was on the outside of life looking in for a very long time in my life. Felt like that what was going on with humanity was something that other people did that I wasn't a part of. And so I think that in that work, in the street photography, there is something of me there in kind of a voyeuristic aspect of me witnessing life, but it's the life that other people are having that maybe I don't feel like I'm a part of.
Okay, I mean, I hear two themes in there. Then I hear, even though this we called it artificial, this literary theme that's being applied. Kind of an alien came down to Earth, and also the kind of voyeuristic theme of just kind of being an outsider. So I mean, that is along the lines of kind of my question, or maybe expanding upon it. So that is cool. That is very cool.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's the theme of my personal isolation. Never really developed. When Eli and I were working on the book, we kind of went with the stranger in a strange land theme. That aspect of my personality may come out in other bodies of work in the future, hopefully, if I continue with my photography and can create other projects. But yeah, I struggle with theme. I mean, we're supposed to write artist statements, as things, and how to put down in writing, what taking pictures is all about. I mean, I think we can all identify really how difficult.
Yeah.
I really wish somebody else would write those things.
I wouldn't be taking pictures. Has to write. Yes. Yeah. But and on the theme, and it was interesting to hear about the kind of there was a particular word you used, but what came from it was a metallic science fiction-y feel to it, and you do very much get, especially from front cover image, which is positively ordinary, spectacular. Just some guys. Is it cling film? What we call cling film in the UK?
No, I don't even know what that material is exactly. That was in Washington Square Park, and some kids were putting on some kind of performance art piece, and there were I don't know, maybe 12 of them. And there's another picture in the book where there's a guy walking around the arch with the American flag.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. That material, that stretchy material, was attached to the back of the flag, and about 12 people behind him were spaced out carrying this stretchy material around with them. And gosh knows what the point of their whole exercise was. This guy with the bullhorn was screaming obscenities every 15 seconds. And
a typical day in New York.
It was pretty incredible. But that material was very silvery and metallic, and it formed to the bodies of the people.
Right. Yes.
And I don't really know. I can't put a name on the. I don't really know what the material was, to tell you the truth. But with that, the body being formed in that material that way, you definitely screamed a photograph at me. Mm-hmm. And interestingly, when Eli and I started working on this, I just had a box of prints of maybe about 200 prints that I ran off on some inexpensive inkjet paper, thinking these could be the pictures that are in the book. And I showed them to a lot of people, and of course Eli and I went through the box several times, and when he saw that picture, he said, well, here's your cover. And okay, well, that solves that problem. I don't have to think about cover. So
marvelous.
Yeah, this would be cool.
I think you've reached Spiros in the center there.
Well, I'll surprise you with my question. What is the story behind the cover photo, and why did you choose it as a cover?
Did I steal that question from you? I hate when that happens.
So that's what I was going to ask, so I haven't prepared anything else at the moment.
Well,
so
I can answer it again if you want me to. Maybe I'll give you a better answer this time.
No, I do have another question.
Okay.
How does the whole process feel of, you know, publishing your own book and doing it the way you have to do it in this day and age? You know, like you describe in your video, you say that now it's publishers don't pay you money to publish the book, but sometimes it's the other way around. And how is the experience for you?
Well, well, I'll start by saying it is a hell of a lot of work, and at least a year of preparation went into what I'm doing right now with this Kickstarter campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Much of that was centered around building a social media audience that, when the time came, I could reach out to support the book. Yeah, part of this whole thing kind of rubs me the wrong way. You know, I really wish, that it kind of bothers me that I have to ask people for this, and I have to keep asking. But I accept the fact that that's just the way it works now, and I also accept some of the advice and words of encouragement that I've gotten from people saying that, David, your book is worth it. It's worthy of being published, and so it's worthy of the effort that you're putting into it. Which, that's this kind of thing. There's a part of it that the world's telling me that's worthy, and there's a part of me that's saying I'm kind of making a nuisance out of myself. But Kickstarter campaigns and all these kind of crowdsourcing things, you kind of have to become a little mini, marketing company, and keep hitting the market with your message, and until the campaign is over. And so I have to admit there's a little bit of guilt that I feel, because I don't like to necessarily ask people for things, but I do think that my book is, I think it is something that is worthy of being out there and of being on the bookshelves, and that's not a feeling that I came to very easily. I had a lot of external input that allowed me to start believing that. Mm-hmm. And it started with Eli, and it never would have happened without Eli. But after Eli, and through my association with the Austin Center for Photography and some of the major photographers that I maybe took workshops from, like Mary Ellen Mark, for example, she has very nice things to say about me, and I really feel like that these folks are not going to say these things unless they really meant it. They don't have to say it. Mm-hmm. I think they do truly believe that my pictures are worthy of their backing and support. So that helps me feel like, okay, well, my message is something that is worthy of getting out into the world. But it's this whole thing with the Kickstarter it's nerve-wracking. It's crazy.
I can imagine.
I'm not quite halfway there yet, and I got about half the time to go, and I'm saying, well, what's got to happen, to push it over? Am I going to get a big day, or I get somebody wants to take the workshop with Eli and me, So that's get 3 people to hit that up, and that's like $6,000. It's like, okay,
right.
But that's a lot of money, and I don't really expect anyone to take that premium. I mean, it'd be great if somebody did, but actually it would take 3 people to take it. But it's humbling, really, to do this. It's exciting, but humbling as well. And so far, it's been a very interesting ride. Some days are better than others.
Thank you.
Of course. Anyone want to jump in?
David, did street photography help you decide to move to New York?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a cool question. Yeah.
Really? Right.
You know, I had lived in Austin. Well, I lived in Austin for 35 years. I moved there a couple years out of college. Excuse me, with my first job as a software engineer, and then when I returned to photography, I just kind of walked into being a street photographer, as we were talking about earlier, and I really started getting tired of Austin. I mean, Austin is a great place. Don't get me wrong. I had a great life there, but as far as finding the types of things that I think are interesting to photograph, I feel like I just kind of outgrew Austin.
Right.
And I had come to New York part-time for a few years, and last summer decided, well, I'm going to go ahead and make the big move, sell my cars and most of my property, and come live in a little 500 square foot apartment in Brooklyn, and see where it might go from here. And it's a very different way of life up here.
I can imagine. And the barbecue's not as good, I imagine, also.
It's not so much the barbecue as the Mexican food.
Oh, really?
I miss Tex-Mex food. They just do not know how to make it up here. And, I miss Güeros and Maudis and my Tex-Mex haunts in Texas that I went to all the time.
That's got to be a challenge for New York, though, really. Come on, guys.
You think that there are Mexican restaurants here, but they're just not very good. I mean, at least in my opinion. And things that they say are warning or spicy hot up here. No.
Not that spicy.
I remember when I first moved to Texas and was going to Tex-Mex places for lunch with my coworkers. I would come out of there with my eyes watering and my sinuses all stuffed up, and this is my introduction to Tex-Mex food. And it took, I don't know how many months to adapt to eating food that was that spicy. And I don't think that kind of stuff up here in New York would have much of a. I don't think a place like that would stay in business very long.
Right. Did you find that moving to New York kind of gave you a boost as far as shooting street? Energized you even more?
Well, since I've been living here part time, I can't really. I don't think I can really say that's definitely true. I did, now that I'm here, and once this business with the book is over with, one way or the other, there are many places of the city that I have not seen. Brooklyn is vast, and I live in a little corner of it called Williamsburg, which is the hipster capital of the world. And I like to tell people I finally get to be one of the cool kids by living where the cool kids live.
Right.
There's a whole section of Brooklyn where I have never been, and one of the things I want to do this summer is explore, get out of my New York comfort zone, and go to some places that are new, and look for some new photographic subjects out that way.
Yeah, I can imagine there's a wealth, just an immense, amount of subject matter there, man. It's intimidating almost.
Since I love photographing people, and I said earlier that all my pictures have people in them, there are a lot of people.
Right.
Who are returned. And hopefully I happen across them when they're doing something interesting. I think that this summer I'd like to venture off into Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn, and some of the neighborhoods, and I think that we, at least in my experience, and this is probably one of the reasons why I decided to leave Austin, was that there's that old saying that familiarity breeds contempt. And
yes.
I don't know if contempt is exactly the right word, but you know, I think familiarity breeds, with a photographer, at least a street photographer, at least with me, it kind of breeds, you know, complacency and maybe laziness even. And I do feel like to go someplace different with my photography, I need to go someplace different literally on the planet. And there are plenty of places in this city that I have not been to that will, I think, will fuel me that way.
I'm sure it will, man, and I think you're exactly right. It does maybe not laziness, but close to it. Yeah, it does breed that.
Yeah. No, I can't believe I'm the only one that kind of feels that kind of, you know, maybe burnout's not the right word, but yeah, it just kind of feels like, okay, well, I've been to this location so many times, and I'm not being visually stimulated anymore. So let's go to some place that's a little more scary, a little more unfamiliar. And I think automatically, when you do that, your senses perk up, you know, because you're not quite as safe, you're not quite as comfortable, and in my case, you don't quite know where you're going to pee next time when you have to go to the bathroom. In the little sections of Manhattan I go now, I have the places all figured out. Where
You gotta have it mapped out. Right?
I know all the places. I gotta go. You know, I know where to go, which wasn't the case when I first came here. You know, I mean, I was depending on Starbucks in those days.
Right.
There's always a line in a Starbucks to eat. And now I have other places.
And most places you probably have to buy something in order to use the facility.
Well, even if they don't insist upon it, I feel like I should.
Exactly. Yes.
I feel like, well, if I'm going to use your facilities, I at least need to buy a latte or something.
Right.
Buy a candy bar.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll venture into parts of Brooklyn where I don't quite know where I can use the facilities when I need to. So I'll probably start getting better pictures again.
Excellent.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Did the photos that you've used for the book exist prior to the idea of the book being conceived, or are they part of the whole book process? I mean, did you think of the book and then start shooting for the book? Or
well, actually, it's almost entirely the other way around. None of the once Eli and I decided to do this, and and we sat down on the road to create a book, and we really at the time had no idea where it was going to go. Mm-hmm. Certainly didn't see Damiani in the picture. That's a fairly recent development. But you know, all the pictures in the book actually were pictures that I took pretty much up until the time that we decided to do this, or he encouraged me to do it. You know, I could reach. I mean, I have taken pictures more recently that I think could be in the book, but I made the decision to kind of just to draw the line. These pictures are going to be up to a certain point in time, because I'm always taking new pictures, and I felt like I had to stop somewhere. You know, I mean, I remember in my days as a software developer, I mean, there was always ways to make something better. You know. Yeah. But one of the most difficult things I had in my business was convincing the employees that, okay, this product is now good enough. It does what we want it to do. It's going to fulfill the mission, and let's go with it. Yeah, it could be a little more elegant, or it could be a little bit faster or something. But, you know, we've got to get it out there and move on to the next thing. And so I kind of took the same approach to the book, that I said, I'm going to stop on whatever date, the middle of 2011, and go with those pictures. And if what we're doing is successful, maybe there'll be another book, and then I can pick up where I left off with some of those pictures. Mm-hmm. And most of the pictures actually were taken in about a 3-year period. I mean, if you actually look in the back, where the titles are, all the years are listed of when the pictures were taken. And a few of them were from 2004, 2005, which are some of the very earliest pictures I might have taken back when I started doing photography again. But most of them were over about a 3-year period, around 2008, 2009, 2010, and through there.
Okay. Great. Thanks. And How would you describe a typical day of David and his camera in the streets of New York?
Well, my days always start with one of these, which is these are in New York. They're called cortados. I don't know what they're called in other parts of the world, but they're basically very short lattes. Sometimes, in some parts, some people refer to them as Gibraltars. Anyway, it's an espresso drink with a little bit of milk, and my mornings have to start with a shot of that. And on days that I'm photographing, literally I would go from coffee shop to coffee shop, and in areas that I was not familiar with. I was both hunting photographs and I was also hunting espresso shops where I could take a break and I could sit down and dig out a book or dig out my laptop and do some things and just kind of recharge and rest a bit, and then move on to the next thing. And part of the reason why I think maybe I'm a little bit complacent right now is that in the parts of New York I go to, I know where all the coffee shops are.
Yeah.
It's time for me to venture out to areas where I don't know where the coffee shops are. And I feel like just kind of the way my craziness works is when I start finding new coffee shops, I'll start finding new pictures also. And so that's definitely a goal for myself this summer. I feel like I haven't been very prolific in clicking the shutter recently. In some ways that kind of bothers me, because I just enjoy the tactile experience of clicking the shutter and taking exposures, and I really haven't been doing that as much as I used to.
Do you think you're getting picky with your photos? Are you getting more? Are you asking for more from yourself? Is that why you're not clicking the shutter so often?
I think that's definitely the case. Yeah, and I think I sometimes wonder and fear that, am I losing this? Am I losing my edge or losing my vision? Because I don't see photographs maybe as often as I used to. And, that's the dark side or the fearful side. But I think what really is happening is I edit now more at the time that I take the pictures. And I'm more critical of myself at exposure time than I used to be. And so I think that while maybe I click the shutter less, I still get probably the same number of decent pictures, but I just don't have as many ones to weed out and throw away, because I weed those out before I ever click the shutter.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're talking about.
And even with a digital camera, with a film camera, makes sense. You don't want to waste film. But even with a digital camera, when the exposure really costs nothing, I'm still just as inclined not to click the shutter if I say, nah, that's not going to be better than what I did before. But that still bothers me sometimes. I still fear that, man, why I went out today and I clicked the shutter twice. And it might have been a day, if 4 or 5 years ago, maybe I went out and clicked the shutter and went through 3 rolls of film.
Yeah.
Well, what's the difference? And I think the difference is I'm more critical visually clicking the shutter now than I used to be. But still, part of me says, "Gosh, I'm missing out on all the fun of taking pictures." Because I'm just, that's not going to be good. I'm not going to do that one.
Yeah, I'm sure we've all felt that, and we feel it many times. I think it just comes and goes, doesn't it? That feeling of being prolific or not, or being over picky with our photos and just not pressing the shutter button. We had a discussion like this about, Andrew started this discussion about, when was it, Andrew? 2 weeks ago in the community?
Long ago, yeah.
Yeah. And we kind of went through this discussion then, and I was very interested in listening to your point of view on this as well. So it's similar to what we all discussed at the time.
Yeah, I think I would have enjoyed that discussion, because it's good to know that this is a universal experience more than maybe I would have thought it was. I mean, that maybe taking it's kind of a roller coaster thing as far as feeling inspired and motivated to click the shutter. Yeah, so I would like to have been a part of that discussion.
Do you think that goes back to your sense of complacency with geography right now with you?
If you know, short of sitting down with a shrink, which I haven't done in a while, maybe I probably would be time again. That's how I would explain it, really. I think. I don't think that I've really, my fear of losing my eye, so to speak, or losing my vision, I don't think that's happened.
Yeah.
I think I am in a period of being hypercritical of the whole process, and you know, saying, that's not going to be a good picture, I'm not going to bother with it, and so
David,
getting new geography will be very helpful, I think, for sure.
David, that can be very crippling. That overcritical, you know, being overcritical can really sort of cripple you as a photographer. So you have to be careful with that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. I sometimes, you know, I struggle with that every time.
I think you should take the photo with I know you're making your mind up before you press the shutter.
Yeah.
I think you should still take that photo and just leave it on your film or on your hard drive, and then maybe go back to it again, and you might go, yeah, that was a good shot, but just, you know, try and have a bit of fun again, because it can cripple you as a photographer.
Yes. Yeah. You really are in the centre of a heightened period with the release of the book. The project itself, Kickstarter, is another arm to it. Appearing live on a Street Hunters meet. We're an hour down, and so I'm going to call a close to the broadcast, live broadcast, but entirely up to you, David, whether you have time or temperament to continue afterwards. I think.
Sure. You know, I'm happy to chat with you guys some more. This is really, an hour. I can't believe an hour has gone by already. It was like.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
It's like a time machine right there. You know, it's like.
So I'm going to officially say thank you very much, and we do from Street Hunters, both the community and us on the website. Really fair witness. Please, ladies and gentlemen, all watching, all who will watch, pop over to that Kickstarter page and donate. It really is simple as that. Thank you very much indeed, Dave.
Oh, yeah, it's been my pleasure indeed, guys. It's been a whole lot of fun.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.